Well, hello, and a very warm welcome to you all. My name is Mark Morley, and this is the IT Business Partner Playbook, a unique series where I'm joined every week by business partners and business relationship managers from around the globe. This is a space, we hope, where people come to rediscover their purpose. In this series, we go beyond the buzzwords and dig into what it really means to lead with clarity and build trust and make a lasting impact. No filters, just honest insights to help lighten the load. Before we jump into today's conversation, I've got two quick asks. The first is if you've got any thoughts or feedback about the podcast, I'd love to hear them. Whether it's in the comments or directly to me, your input really helps shape the kinds of conversations we have here. If there's a topic you want us to dig into, then please let me know. Secondly, if you're finding value in these episodes, please hit the subscribe button and give this episode a thumbs up. It helps us reach more people and grow the community and offer more guidance. So on to today's episode, and I'm delighted to be joined by Sahil Khullar, Associate Director and IT Business Partner at Merck, a global science and technology company which is headquartered in Germany. Sahil, who's based in the US, has had a very interesting career. Like a few of our guests, started in a very different field for where he finds himself now. So good morning to you, Sahil, and thanks so much for joining me. Can I hand over to you for a quick introduction before we take a look at your journey here and dig into what business partnering means to you?
Sure, Mark. First of all, thank you for having me here. It's been a pleasure listening to your podcast and watching and learning a lot and sharing and understanding that the pain points and the opportunity areas are agnostic of industries is everywhere in this BRM and business partnering field. I over here work at Merck KGaA, which is based out of Darmstadt, Germany, as a business partner for commercial marketing and sales. Throughout my career, I have worked with various biopharma medical device companies, ranging from Medtronic, Diagnostics for All, Arthrex, Biogen, and to name a few, but mostly worked in US and Boston area. And it's been a pleasure and I would say a thrilling ride so far. So looking forward to creating more value in this space going forward.
Perfect. So we spoke before, and you said that you've had quite an interesting career trajectory. You started off in a very different field. Can you talk to us about where you started and then how you've ended up where you are now?
Sure. Yeah. So from an education perspective, I have a bachelor's in pharmacy, master's in biomedical, and an MBA in healthcare and operations. I used to be a scientist back in the day, working on diagnostic devices, creating and developing diagnostic devices. So when I was working on this Diagnostics for All company, I realized that there's a lot of value that can be created by merging technology and science. And that is what enthused me to explore the technology side of the equation. So that's how I entered into the lab IT side of the things, R&D IT side of the things. And that's how my journey in IT started back in the day. Since then, I worked in various roles, starting from, let's say, a business analyst, project manager, program manager, and now a business partner role. And I worked with various IT departments in an organization, starting from R&D IT, quality IT, regulatory IT, product development, marketing, and sales now. So looking at how IT delivers value through different lenses, through different functions within an organization has been very instrumental in my journey. And it has enriched my understanding in how can an IT function, starting from, let's say, a product launch or a product discovery, deliver the value, and how technology actually enables the business to deliver value has been very, I would say, enriching and rewarding so far.
Yeah, and that's not a common kind of perspective that a lot of people in IT have, I'd say. At least a lot that we've met, is that often you find in people in technical roles very focused on what they're doing. They know, about their environment. They know what it is they need to build something or to fix something. But having that overall view of why they're doing it, what's going to be the value at the end of it. And not even just delivering a project, but delivering on the whole program. Where's it going? So it's great that you have that perspective. And I wonder, it must be, I think, because of those previous roles that you've had this interest in what value can be delivered from technology, not just what technology can be delivered.
Yeah. So the way I like to say is there's no thing such as there's an IT project. It's always a business project, and IT is enabling business to achieve that strategic vision or strategic goal. So if we're looking at value stream delivery of things, then you start operating in a non-siloed fashion, and you start looking at a broader picture in which our technology is enabling the particular business. And that's when you look at different cross functions, and connecting the dots really helps.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that's quite interesting because we've been saying for a long time. You hear the IT project, and it's typically the project is named after the solution. So it's an SAP project or it's a a Power BI project, but it's actually a business project that's enabled by technology. And I think so many of the challenges, so many of the issues are because of that is seen as an IT project. So business hand it over to IT and say, go and deliver it. But and then business stand off either because they feel that they don't understand enough about what's going on in the technology side. But if there was more involvement from the business and there was more ownership from the business, I think we'd see a lot more successful projects running. Was the business partner role new to you? Did you come across it before you moved into it?
So in my career journey, I've seen business partner, business relationship manager role morphed into some other named or titles, but basically doing, I would say, the same thing. Without naming the organizations, I can mention that in few organizations it could serve as a project lead or a program lead, but the role of a lead in those kind of organizations is not just delivering that IT solution, but looking at the adoption of the solution, looking at tracking the benefits of the solution. So that's where I see that the organizations are warming up to this specific role. Business partner, business relationship manager is a newer term in context, and specifically in the United States, I would say the organizations are warming up to this role now. And I see sometimes this role being done by portfolio managers, sometimes this role being done by program managers. But now having created a specific niche for this role and specific needs for this role is being understood by the broader industry.
So was the business partner role that you have now, did that exist at Merck before you moved into it, or is it something that was created for you or by you?
So we restructured. Change is always constant, and BRM role is relatively a newer role within Merck organization. Initially, it was a kind of a program manager, portfolio manager role, so have existed as well. Now, business partner BRM is a newer role within. It's been 2 years so far, but the maturity is definitely there. So, in my experience, I have seen the BRM role or business partner role over the scale start from being very tactical to strategic as well.
Right.
So in any organization, I would suggest if they are planning to implement this role on a newer basis, I would say start with tactical portion of the things and start gaining trust with your business and to the strategic side. If the fire is burning, you cannot expect to be strategic at that time. You need to douse that fire on day one, probably production issue, a server is not working, things like that. And really handling those issues and delivering value on those particular tactical things will help you garner trust over time with your business. And that's how the role has evolved eventually, starting from a tactical to a strategic role now.
Do you have a team of business partners at Merck?
Yes. So with the way we are structured is we have definitely, without diving into too much details about my particular organization, what I can tell is we are definitely split on based on areas or geographic regions, because you have to interact regularly with your business stakeholders located in specific geography. Although we all work in global organizations, most of our stakeholders are definitely in particular regions that we would like to focus on. So we also are structured in a way based on the capabilities or a particular focus areas a BRM may be focused on as well. So it's a flavor. It's a kind of a metrics organization in which your focus are structured based on geographic regions and then on a capability areas that you want to deliver on.
Okay. And do you just split your time up into focusing on certain things, like maybe researching new things or building relationships specifically, or fighting those fires or dealing with operational things? Do you have kind of a set guide on how you spend your time?
So Mark, being very transparent, so we didn't have a structured template per se that as a BRM you have to spend 10% or 20% of your time scouting new technologies. But over the period of time, as our maturity in the role grew, we all created our own personal templates, and I specifically created my own personal templates in how much time I would want to focus on building relationships or keeping my stakeholder engaged any programs that are upcoming or their present demands. And then how much time would I like to scout for new technologies, specifically for AI, new technologies are coming in. And working in these technology spaces, you have to stay abreast of all the technological advancements happening in the field. Because what I have realized through my journey is that sometimes the business doesn't know what they want. There are so many unknowns, and we as technology leaders as well have to continuously scout for the latest advancements and then be thought leaders in that space and come up with these I would say ideas saying, have you thought about this? There is something that exists like this. This process can be done probably in a better way by engaging technology in here. So inserting yourself, closely embedding yourself in that fabric of business, I would say strategy, their visions, their pain points, living and breathing that air, as I call it, understanding it from the first hand from the stakeholders really helps in understanding their problem, pain points, opportunity areas. Along with that, bringing in that thought leadership from scouting perspective really helps in this role. In addition to that, there is a mix of, I would say, execution as well, because as we know that strategy, execution eats strategy for breakfast, or vice versa, whatever that idiom is. But execution is also a part of this role. So it could be also due to, I would say, bandwidth concerns, but also if there are projects which are lower complexity are handled by BRMs in some organization as well. Or if there's a bandwidth concern for PM, the BRM also manages those projects in a PM capacity sometimes.
So do you, as a group, have the oversight of all these projects that are running and keep an eye and say, look, this one is probably not as important as this one we don't have the resources for it, this one's actually obsolete now, so we need to, dial it back? Do you have, as a team, that kind of oversight?
Yes. So that comes into a flavor of portfolio management or demand prioritization. Initially, I would say I've seen organizations running into a Wild West mode in which whoever shouts the loudest gets the project approved and funding approved. But more mature organizations have put together a kind of a framework for prioritizing projects. I've seen through my various experiences in which how organizations have implemented and have been very instrumental and core member of those teams to institute this process of prioritization. So creating those kind of a demand funnel not only just helps you to be more transparent with the stakeholders and more methodical in how you prioritize different projects, programs, but it also creates a funnel or a pipeline so you can plan your roadmap, let's say for this fiscal year, for next fiscal year. So more kind of a tactical roadmap can also be derived out of these kind of funnels, but it doesn't negate the need of creating a 3 to 5 year technology roadmap or a business roadmap that is always overarching.
Sure.
And then this tactical elements can always feed in once we get it from our funnel.
Yeah. Do you find that business really appreciates that kind of that oversight and that interaction? Because it never ceases to amaze me when we do consulting or even training engagements, working with some of these companies where you think, they're really at the pinnacle of what they're doing. And then you speak to them about a project they're working on and you're like, why, what led you to this? And they said, well, because this person in the C-suite wanted it done. So they just overruled everything else. And you think, wow, this is still happening. It is really the person that shouts the loudest gets things done. So I think the business must appreciate that you're supporting them to making sure that these things are properly allocated and managed.
Yeah, I would say it's a learning curve for everyone because, for example, if there were business stakeholders who got their projects approved by just, let's say, providing urgency kind of situations or urgency kind of notes, got their projects approved in the past, they might have a challenge in getting their projects approved now because this has to go through different iterations, as I call it, business assessment, IT assessment, in which the business case is thoroughly analyzed and then coming to a conclusion about whether we want to approve the funding for this project or not. But at the same time, it's a learning curve for IT as well, because sometimes whatever the C-suite is telling about, let's say this project needs to be done today, maybe they're looking at a quarterly P&L, revenue forecast that they need to meet to keep the Wall Street happy, or to keep the stockholders happy. So it takes a lot of maturity in toning up and toning down what project need to be approved in what strategic relevance. So if it's a compliance or a quality project, that definitely gets precedence because there are guidelines out there. There are certainly fines out there based on percentage of your revenue. You you get fined as per of your revenue. So sometimes we sitting in ITs do not have that kind of visibility or understanding. So we have to, it's a kind of a two-way street in which you have to dial up and dial down the rigor in gating this process as well. So adaptability is key here. Communication is key here, and definitely the trust element is the key here, because both the parties, IT and the business stakeholders, need to trust the guidance coming from both the directions.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's so important, because if you don't have that credibility, then people aren't going to listen to your advice and then just steam ahead anyway. So it's critical that you have that. Do you find that the business partnering is more or less successful in certain parts of the business? So you have different team members obviously managing different areas, but do you find that some struggle and some don't? And are there any kind of themes as to what would make them more or less successful?
Yes, I think the struggles, specifically when you are instituting this role, when you're creating this new role, some people, I would say, call it as glorified business analyst. Well, you are just taking requirements and then probably creating projects out of it. So is that what the business analyst does? But they're not looking at it from the overarching delivery that you're providing or a value you're providing, because a role of a business partner is not just looking at that particular requirement, creating functional requirement out of it, and then probably creating a project out of it. The business partner is looking at what is the strategic relevance of this project or this particular requirement coming in. How is this being impacted by other, I would say, things happening in an IT space or business space? So they are scouting not just technologies, but also other business initiatives. So that is why it's very imperative for business partner to have that overview of what's happening in the business, what's happening on the technology side, and then make that judgment. Along with that, we also challenge business in business partner role. We challenge the business to make that robust business case, to make people think through, why do you need this? What is the value that they are providing? Because sometimes business has a tendency to get the latest shiny object in the market. Hey, we want this AI solution. But the business partner's role is to not do the tech for just tech's sake, but look at, challenge, why do we need this? Okay, great. We need this. What other things can this technology solve? What are the synergies that we can achieve throughout the business unit or throughout the business, I would say, strategy? So that's the role of business partner, which is different from business analyst. And that's how I would say that's how you move from a more tactical or more nascent maturity to a more advanced maturity stage for a company.
Yeah, I think it was Dennis Defros on one of the previous episodes was saying that one of the things you do have to be able to do is kind of rein people in, because they do get carried away with these shiny new boxes. So as a business partner, you can say, look, what is the real reason behind this? Yes, it's great, and yes, it might do something really nicely, but do we really need it? Is it going to add the value that it's that you think it will? So that's one of the benefits of the business partner role. I was just thinking, from a lot of people we've spoken to, it seems that innovation is really supported by the BRM and the business partner team, because, as you said, you are going out there and thinking, you're trying to be one step ahead so you can support the business. So having that role is really something that supports innovation, I think, and that's obviously something that is very valuable to many companies, but probably is throttled a bit because it just isn't that oversight and people having this forward thought.
That is true. So, for example, you have DevOps, you have architect teams sitting within IT, and some of them are working on existing projects. So there are only so many people who can, you can work on projects, and they have their bandwidths already maxed out. So there is definitely a need for someone to look at the innovation space of the things as well, not just new technologies, but new ways of working as well. Sometimes I've seen organizations shifting from project-based approach to a product-based approach as well, and looking at benefit realization plan for things, creating those benefit realization execution plan or benefit realization plan also helps. So looking at just not the technologies for innovate or innovation technologies as well, but also looking at ways of working and looking at business process improvement. So it always helps to look at the business processes and see, okay, why are we doing it this way? Can this be done in a certain, I would say, a much more leaner and much higher quality way? So things like that, having a fresh pair of eyes coming from someone who understands the technology or capabilities of technologies really helps the business, because business is looking at from, hey, this is our business process and we want XYZ process to be done to support our business process. That's pretty much their thinking, but they sometimes do not have the technical or technology lens as well, how this can be enabled by technology. So that's where business partner comes in, looking at technologies, looking at ways of working, looking at business processes, and identifying those opportunity areas.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because we've spoken to a few large organizations really who are looking at digital transformation. So that's kind of one of these buzzwords that's been bandied around. But BRMs are really critical in digital transformation, because one of the things that we see that they are able to focus on is not just what new technology can we grab hold of, but improving the business processes, as you said, because this is one of the things that we think should be the first thing you do if you're going to go ahead with digital transformation. Before you go and get that new shiny box, look at your business processes, because can you improve those to make yourself, more digitally advanced before you start getting anything else involved? Let's make what you've got more efficient. And this is something I think business partners are really good at, and it's something I think is undervalued and not really spoken about very often.
In addition to this, I would say not just innovation, but also providing that justification to the IT function as well, or providing that why to the IT function, because I have seen in my experience, sometimes IT is totally disconnected on why they are doing certain things. They have been given a project or a requirement, and they just go ahead and deliver it without an understanding of how it's impacting or creating value for the business. In those cases, you can see that even if you look at customer journey built through these solutions is very broken, fragmented, and you can see the gaps evidently. And then you have an aha moment on how come somebody who's building this doesn't realize that what value you're delivering or see the big picture here. And that's where you see the gap and the need for having someone looking at this big picture, communicating it to the IT function on why it's being done, and really rallying the troops, really socializing that program vision, if you would, or initiative vision. So it creates that harmony and homogenization and alignment within the IT functions. And then everyone starts to act like a thought leader, which is really cool, because now you're not just having one pair of eyes at the customer journey, but now you have your entire IT team looking at and having those aha moments and really challenging the concept. And that's how I would say innovation and the better product delivery happens.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is something that Jeremy, who was on the first episode, was saying that it's really important, he finds, to bring IT out of the basement and to make sure they are involved in these conversations, because they often have great ideas. If they are just focused on one thing. I mean, there's an image from a long time ago who said a guy building a cathedral, but he can only see the brick that he's laying. But then when you step back and you see the bigger picture, suddenly he's more motivated. He knows what it is that he's building towards. So giving people in IT that opportunity to say, okay, you're building this is why. And then also, do you have any ideas? How can we improve it? So bringing them along with you, I think, is a great way to motivate, but also bringing those fresh ideas and those potential innovations. But also, same with the business, I guess. Make sure that one of the things, sorry to jump around here, but one of the things that we find isn't talked about a lot with business partners or relationship managers is the kind of nurturing of relationships outside of your own. So it's great that you have great relationships, but if you can build relationships between people as well, so you can then step back, you can get two people to connect, understand each other, and then you don't need to get involved again, because that relationship now exists. Do you find that there's much cause or do you put much effort into doing that kind of thing?
Yes, so there is a aspect of the business partner or BRM role, which I call it as orchestrator or master orchestrator or connector, which means connecting of ideas, connecting of people. I have seen instances in which people are, hey, I don't know someone from XYZ department, how do I reach out? So that's where a person who's leading as a BRM really helps connect people, and then they step back and let the function deliver, or let the people deliver whatever value they are trying to create.
Yeah.
So that really removes first of all the bottleneck, which is probably the BRM's time, because he has to create more relationships, he has to put further dots in his role. But then once people have been connected, they can work on delivering that value, they can engage and collaborate. And BRM plays, I would say, a very important role in understanding who's who within the organization, and then connecting those people and removing those silos, which could be either due to technical reasons or just due to org structure reasons.
Yeah.
I have seen instances in which orgs have restructured just to foster collaboration. uh, I see that as more systemic issue in you have to you have to restructure your org just to foster collaboration. But I would rather advise these kind of organizations to invest in business partner BRM roles, in which those people can connect the dots and have that collaboration achieved more organically, I would say.
Mm. Do you try or have any means of spreading the kind of the BRM or business partner philosophy throughout the organization? Because we've thought for a long time now that this capability should be an organizational capability. It should become the culture. It should just be the way things are done, that people are trying to nurture relationships and have this oversight and the end goal and always have a focus on value. And it seems in some organizations that BRM almost becomes another silo. It's just you become the focus point, you become the person that kind of connects the dots, rather than trying to filter out this way of working so that more and more people can get involved and understand it. So is there any effort in doing that in your organization, just trying to make sure that BRM becomes more of a culture than a role?
So I can give you a kind of a generic answer without giving the details of what's happening in exactly my organization. I would say that organizations which invest in a strong PMO and having those boundaries and having those, I would say, a good ratio of what does a PMO do, what's the portfolio management office do, and what's the project management office doing, and then what a BRM as a center of excellence could be doing. So you have these kind of three structures created within your IT function that may actually remove a lot of confusion within what a business relationship manager or business partner does, and bring in more rigor and respect for this function. Luckily, I have been part of the organizations in which, in my recent roles, I've been part of the organizations which really respect the business partner or business relationship manager role, and it's well instituted within the organization once they decided to go the BRM route.
Right.
In my previous experiences, there were instances in which organizations didn't completely understand, and BRM became jack of all trades. They could become a PM, it could become a portfolio manager, they could become a program manager, and they could be also doing business analysis to a certain extent. And that's where actually the things started getting murky, because now BRM is focused on very tactical details, and they are not scouting for new knowledge and new ideas. They're not looking at business process out of curiosity. They're just, I would say, focusing on very imminent projects which are at hand and which need very tactical level of work to be done, which I think in a better, I would say, the amount of compensation an organization provides to a BRM, I would say that's waste of their dollars or whatever currency you're trading in. You could easily use a business analyst to work on those kind of tactical initiatives. A BRM or a business partner should be more focused on more strategic parts of the business and understanding the strategy and creating the technology roadmap along with the architecture team. So it's been a kind of a spectrum, if you would, Mark, of how BRM has been used very murkily to being very crystal clear on what BRM delivers. I have seen organizations who have a very strong PMO, a portfolio management function, and a business partner center of excellence deliver value and without having any overlap of the function.
So we come across so many organizations, so many people in those organizations where BRM is murky. Big business partnering is misunderstood. They don't have the kind of room they need to be able to perform the role that they're supposed to do. So going from, if you're in one of those organizations, what do you think people can do to move into, how you're doing it now, how BRM should be? What kind of things can change to go from one state to the better state?
Yeah. So having been in those instances, what I have realized is start delivering value, start creating that trust, start proving a value. And I don't want to use a buzzword here, just value very loosely, but it has to come from starting from a tactical perspective. So initially, if the BRM is being used as I would say, or leveraged as a business analyst or a project manager, yes, execute it, have delivery excellence in that role, and start acting as a thought leader in that space, which means scouting for new technology, start attending webinars, start attending these conferences out there, connect with industry peers as well, not just within the organization, but outside the organization as well. If you are in biopharma medical device space, for example, connect with other people who are in the similar space, who are in the similar domain, and understand what's happening in their organization, what are their pain points, and what is the industry pain point, and what is industry going towards in a particular space, whether it's a commercial space that you are focused on, whether it's R&D, product development, etc., supply chain, it could be anything. So understanding what are the industry trends and bringing those knowledge and bringing those nuggets of wisdom internally and connecting with your business stakeholders, saying, hey, industry is moving towards XYZ. Have you thought about it? What are our plans for it? What does that mean for us? So having those kind of discussions with the business stakeholders will automatically get you the seat on the table. Along with that, start to understand the business as well. Sometimes BRM who are stuck in that business analyst, project manager kind of rabbit hole do not have the visibility of, I would say, the entire business strategy or business vision that they have. So start connecting, start following the money. That's my, I would say, closest advice or candid advice, because if you start following the money, you will understand how is your particular company or your organization making money. And at the end of the day, business executives are looking to create money for the organization and have a responsibility to create value for the stakeholders. At the same time, do society the good and benefits that they deliver. So if you keep your themes into those two areas, if you keep your curiosity in those two areas about creating value for the organization and create benefit for the society, you will easily understand what initiatives bring you closer to that particular goal. And once you start having those discussions with your business stakeholders, whether it's meeting those quarterly P&L or I would say revenue forecast, or you're looking at I would say 6 months forecast or a fiscal year forecast, whatever your goal is, but looking at how your initiatives are leading you closer to that vision will automatically make you a valuable partner for those discussions with the business. And then along with that, there's a huge factor of technical debt or organization process debt that comes along with it. So start cleaning the house along with building the new floor, I would say, really helps to get that gravitas with the business stakeholders.
Okay. Yeah, that's good advice. Did you also, because you mentioned just now that having clearly defined roles, so the project office and other functions that you're working alongside, if those roles are clearly defined and the BRM roles are clearly defined, then it just makes it much easier for everyone to work together. Is that something that you've done as a BRM function, that you've kind of gone off and done that yourselves, or is that something that's come down from above, that they make sure that everyone really understood their roles and so there was no confusion?
So yeah, I have been part of defining the roles and responsibilities for certain functions as well within this organization and previous organizations as well. And I will tell you, it doesn't come easy. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of negotiation, a lot of frustration that happens while creating who is going to do what. There is so much overlap in this space, and that's where people really lose the oversight on what was initially a role was created for. So we go back to the various, I would say, methodologies. So for example, for project management office, we go back to PMI. For business relationship management, we refer to BRM Institute. So looking at those textbook or those, I would say, industry recommended roles and responsibilities really helps to recalibrate our, I would say, focus of roles and responsibility, or that RACI matrix on who is supposed to do what. And then definitely, I have seen within my organization, no organization is following those methodologies to the T or to the book.
Right.
Is always a different flavor that happens based on the organization context and how the organization is structured. So finding that happy balance, having that delicate discussions within those delivery teams or within those functions of the IT organization, and coming to a kind of a consensus, and then also socializing it and championing it throughout, I would say, the adoption curve really helps. And then along with that, within a 6 month time frame or within a year time frame, going back to the drawing board, and having those lessons learned sessions saying what worked, what's not working, having those anonymous surveys throughout your IT organization to really understand what's happening on the grassroots level or what's happening on the people who are in those roles, how are they feeling, and then taking that feedback constructively and then revising our approach is the way to go. In my experience, I would tell you that like within the PM portfolio manager of who is going to manage finances, for example, if funding is getting approved, if BRM is championing a business case along with the business stakeholder, who approves the funding, whether it's the portfolio manager or the BRM has the authority to get that project approved and get the funds allocated. So for just this example, we had to really understand and appreciate what does a portfolio manager do for a particular organization, who is responsible for the fiduciary responsibilities of the portfolio or fiscal health of the portfolio, and how is IT justifying its value when it gets particular budget from the business in a fiscal year. So who is proving that business value, and that's definitely challenging because the IT investment values are very quantitative sometimes, but also very qualitative. And it gets really, there are some soft benefits and hard benefits. And then you work with your portfolio manager, because at the end of the day, portfolio manager is working with the CIO to justify the value IT is bringing in a fiscal year. So things like that, looking at the textbook definition of things and then finding your own happy balance as an organization, and then having those tough discussions with various stakeholders, and keeping the vision intact that you're trying to clarify the roles so that people are not overstepping. Along with that, there's no gap within the things that you're trying to do. Having the hard discussions upfront really, I would say, provide values long term. And then as part of BRM, we look at benefits. Same thing, we look at lessons learned. Same thing applies for this initiative, in which you're looking at, let's say, collecting surveys after 1 year or 2 year mark, recalibrating your approach. And it's always recalibrating, because there are different ways of working always up, because you're now aligning your groups as per the business restructuring as well. Sometimes the business likes to have a product-based approach. Sometimes they are structured into franchises. So you come up with a plan on which BRM is going to support what franchisee or which function. So there's always a restructure or recalibration that always happens in these roles, which we have to be very adaptable as BRMs.
Yeah, I think that's really important what you've said there about that recalibration, and it kind of ties with continuous learning. And I think that's one of the issues that BRMs have, because I guess it's quite a fairly new role. So project managers have been around forever, architects. They've all had their frameworks, and it seems, we used to offer those kind of trainings as well, but it seems that they're always kind of applied everything. Here's the framework, we're going to jam it into the organization, we're going to follow it to the T. And so when you've got that kind of rigidity, when you have a new function come along, it might not seem that there's room for it, but it's because these other roles are so mature, they're less willing to change. But we found with all these frameworks, including the BRM framework, there's great guidance in there. There's great kind of techniques and practices that you can follow, but you do have to customize them. They do have to be tailored for your environment. So when you try and jam something in, when you get this framework and it seems to make sense, and you try and jam it into an organization, more often than not, it's not going to work entirely. And so this is when you always have these overlaps. And if no one's willing to compromise, then that's when you come unstuck. And that was kind of evidence. We did one training session a while back to a large firm, and we were going through the training, and they were like, "Wow, this is great, and we love this terminology, and we love this approach." And then we spoke to them a month or so later, like, how are you getting on? And they said they really upset people, because they went back and they started talking differently, and they started referring to different things, and they started kind of trying to take over things because it was kind of considered their responsibility, but it just didn't fit the environment, and there was no kind of compromise or blend. So you have to be careful with these frameworks. I think that you do have to kind of be aware of your environment and just make sure that things fit together nicely. So yeah, as you say, having that recalibration is a really important step.
Yeah. And along with that, I think that BRMs or business partners are the representatives of IT for any particular function. Let's say you are working in R&D, you're working in quality, and if you have a BRM focus on those particular areas, that's your I would say, one throat to choke, if they call it, because as the representative of IT in that particular function. So empowering the BRM or business partners to get that traction within the IT, having them that kind of a empowerment mindset in which they can tap into BA, they can tap into a DevOps folk, they can tap into architect to get responses speedily. So that's your white glove IT service on a very strategic level. Definitely not something like, hey, my computer is not working, my printer is not working, can you help it? Yes, some BRMs do take it, and they should take it because that's a very tactical issue, and that's how you start building trust. Sometimes those are very, I would say, those are sometimes mission critical activities as well. But usually, BRM should be delegating those kind of tasks to certain delivery functions. But as you said, Mark, having those discussions about roles and responsibilities, and then organically coming up and having those discussions within those functions really helps to remove that tension between different groups as well. Because at the end of the day, these all groups are trying to create value for the business, and it's not about who is doing what in terms of, hey, we can't step on people's toes. That's not the attitude or dialogue that we should be having with our delivery team. I think it's a more collaborative and a value stream mindset that we need to inculcate within our delivery teams as well to have.
Yeah, one of the nice tools that the Institute have was this relationship strategy on a page, which I thought was nice because although I've not often seen them completed, just having that conversation with people to say, look, this is what I expect from you, this is what you can expect from me. Are we on the same page? Are we going to be able to work together in this way? I think having that, setting those expectations up front just kind of paves the way to make a much smoother working relationship going forward. So I think with some of the other guests we've spoken to, they do have these regular feedback sessions, and you mentioned that you did surveys, which is great. But having that regular feedback to say, look, this, are we heading in the same direction? Are we kind of seeing eye to eye? Just going back to those surveys, another thing that BRM struggle with is kind of demonstrating their value. And one of the ways that some companies have kind of supported this is by having these surveys and then creating reports. So BRMs have like a quarterly or annual report to say, this is what we've been working on, this is what we've helped succeed. Is that the surveys that you do? You said they're anonymous to complete, but do you kind of publish the results? Do you share your successes?
So we do not have a performance metric for the BRM role per se, in which we are asking on these surveys how a particular BRM is performing or how a BRM function is performing. But I do see a value in having that subjective analysis or subjective survey, a qualitative survey done by not just by IT community but also from business stakeholder. How are they feeling supported? We track it in a different manner in which if a BRM is supporting a project or initiative, the team as a whole is ranked on delivery. So in that way, the BRM input is probably masked, or BRM rating is probably masked by the entire team rating, because all in all, a BRM is accountable for the entire delivery. If you think about it, when an initiative gets started, right from the inception of business case to benefit realization, a BRM is accountable for delivery, accountable for benefit realization. So based on that, we do a stakeholder survey at the end of the project when it's finished or program is delivered, and that kind of is a kind of a proxy of a BRM rating that we sometimes use.
Okay, cool, and that sounds good. You mentioned earlier that one of the ways you help support the business is to go out into the world and see what else is going on, and talking to other BRMs, other people from different companies. Do you have much of a community, either in the US or within pharmaceuticals, or that you can go to people for advice that are kind of your peer group?
Yeah, so definitely there are. I was in Reuters, which was held in Philadelphia, pharma event by Reuters this year. But there are other conferences, other events that happen locally in my region as well, in which people who are working in these specific areas come together. They talk about, there are certain vendor roadshows as well that you can go to. That's one thing. That's one tool that you could use to stay abreast of your knowledge about the domain particularly, and also build connections within the industry. Along with that, LinkedIn is a very helpful tool. You can reach out to people on LinkedIn talk about your ambitions and aspirations that, hey, I work in this domain. I want to understand what's happening within your side of the things, and what are your common pain points, and how is your company handling it. Sometimes those kind of discussions, creating the mutual value and having that discussion with your peers sometimes helps as well, and builds your connections as well. Along with that, attending webinars for particular technology vendors makes you think, even if you are not scouting for technology per se currently, but any technologies that is touching your space. Let's say a particular vendor is an SAP vendor, or let's say they are selling a particular technology for AI. Out of curiosity, having that curiosity mindset really helps to attend those webinars and keeping back of your mind that things like these exist. And now if tomorrow, or let's say in next 6 months, your business starts thinking on those lines, then immediately you can tap into your previous connections or your previous webinars, I would say, to see that, hey, I connected with this vendor who was working in this space and they had this kind of technology. Would you be open to just having an introductory call with them and what's out there? But that can only happen if you have been constantly scouting for technologies and understanding what's going on in that space. So that is really imperative. Otherwise, you start with day one, and that's where you may lose trust from your business, because now you're starting from day zero with them. But if you're already hitting ground running, if you've already been doing this work, then definitely you can be that thought leader and get a seat on that table to be part of that journey with them.
Yeah, I remember speaking to Bruna over in Brazil on one of the episodes. She was saying that curiosity is almost like one of the superpowers. You must always be kind of looking for new people to meet, looking for new products, just always be curious, always kind of asking why and looking for new things. But I think when she was talking about it, it was more about meeting new people. Just if you see someone, stop, ask what they're doing. Maybe you can build a relationship and find out something you didn't know before. How do you get to meet people face to face in your organization? How do you kind of stay connected with people?
Yeah, so we are a hybrid organization. Sometimes it's in person, sometimes it's virtually. Mostly it's virtually because the way we operate right now, and we have global teams. We operate in 50 plus countries now as our organization. And so definitely nobody can be, you can't have people co-located. So we make the most out of it by connecting virtually. And having those informal chats, sometimes it could be just, hey, what's going on in your process area? What's happening in your things? So having those informal connections on a regular cadence really helps to maintain that touch point and maintain that, I would say, line of communication within you and the business stakeholders. So if you have presence virtually or physically, if they have, let's say, hey, I know somebody in IT whose name is Sahil and he focuses on this area. If you are their go-to person, if they remember you, then they will always reach out to you when they have slightest trouble in their part of the equation. So having those regular organic cadence discussions with them help, whether it's virtually or in person. And I see that people have now become more attuned to virtual meetings as well, although it takes a lot of, I would say, a lot of different nuances or different skills to create that trust and create that warm collegial relationship over virtually rather than in person. In person is definitely easier. When you meet the person, you understand their mannerism, body language, and you actually are there in person. So you're totally distraction free as well. But definitely it requires some special skills to be connected in the same way in person. So business partner role also involves about having that body language, having that a feeling of creating trust and being vulnerable enough to share your pain points, because working in a remote world, I see these days people are getting disengaged. Employee engagement is all-time low right now. So engaging your employees, whether it's in your business side of things or whether it's IT side of things, requires some special skills to be open to, for letting people to be open to you and you being open to them.
All right. Yeah. Do you have so when we spoke to Jack, she's based in the UK, they've got a very big BRM team. They're a financial company, but they arranged BRM roadshows, so they would get people together to kind of just showcase what BRMs were doing, how they were supporting the business. Is that something that you've ever been a part of or been able to organize, where the company kind of can get together for a town hall or something, and you get to showcase what BRMs do?
We do a kind of a quarterly review currently within my organization, and we also do a kind of an annual IT town hall in which we talk about what value has been created by a particular function,
Okay.
not specifically for BRM per se.
Right.
So, as I mentioned earlier, there's no metric calculation done
Yeah.
for a BRM role currently, and no particular roadshow that happens currently. Although I definitely see a value in which each function, specifically these three functions I see, which kind of collide a lot with each other, which is PM, portfolio management, project management, and VR as well. These three functions should be, I would say, independently recognized on how they are creating value, which will also help to reduce the tension and overlap that sometimes is misconceived within these functions.
Do you think business partners or BRMs are as widely recognized or understood in your business as some of those functions you just mentioned?
Yes, I see now the companies who have instituted these roles and working in a much more mature fashion, or at least on that spectrum, are in the middle range, that maturity, are now starting to realize the value of business partner. In my instances, I've seen organizations which lacked total context of the customer experience, customer journey, and they overlooked certain aspects of the entire customer piece. So where you could clearly see that there were gaps which were not thought about when you were looking at, let's say, a launch readiness plan. There were certain aspects that were I would say, a very ad hoc delivery of those aspects. Not all those features happened, or they were like aha moments. Hey, well, have you thought about this? Well, nobody thought about this because this was never a project. This was never in the project plan. This was never a project requirement. Then IT was brought in to say, hey, why was this not being taken care by IT? Because there was a business partner looking at the entire value delivery. And that's where organizations started to realize the gap, that there needs to be someone who is looking at the entire value stream, who's looking at how these different IT functionalities create value, deliver the business outcome that we are looking for. What is the I would say launch readiness T-30 plan, T-6 months plan, whatever that is, and then how are you navigating towards it? How are our systems looking on the day of launch? What's our launch readiness plan? And then what happens after launch? Are we tracking the metrics? Because even businesses are realizing that those metrics to be tracked are how the customer is engaging with your product or your digital product, whatever that is, and tracking that and understanding that data also helps. So looking at the entire value stream was not being done previously, and that's when business partners were brought in. Some teams also have, or some organizations have, functional leaders as well, but functional leaders are working on a specific, I would say, like say commercial, quality, or regulatory, those kind of features for that particular product, if you will. But I would say they are looking up on from more technical perspective. But when you have a business partner, they are looking at from a business engagement, this value creation, what is the value stream looking like, and then mapping it to the technical delivery part of it. So I would say, it's kind of in IT world, we say they are the middle layer, or that API that connects to interface to systems. So that's how I refer business partners sometimes as well. You're connecting the business and you're connecting the technology side of the house, and then you're making everything work. Loyal machine.
Yeah. Wonderful. I've just seen the time, so we're kind of coming to the end, but I could listen to you for ages. Actually, it's been very insightful, this conversation. There's so much I've been taking away from this, so I really appreciate you sharing this with me. I always ask my guests, is there something that you've learned during your career? Is there anything taught you in your current role that you would pass on to other people to say that this made a big impact on me as a BRM and has really helped me bring value to my role? Is there any advice that you could share with others?
Yeah, so what I am realizing in my career journey, Mark, is as I grow in my career, that people are very important. And it's not just about technology, especially in these times when technology is changing rapidly. Taking care of the people and understanding people and being understood by people is very important as well. Keeping human in the loop is absolutely essential, whether it comes to AI, whether it comes to any change your organization is doing. So keeping your relationships, keeping your people in front and center helps to smooth out a lot of things, I would say. Your technology implementation, your technology adoption, and your business outcomes all become fruitful by taking care of the people who are involved in it. I would advise all the BRMs to not just only scout for technologies, but also focus on creating those relationships as well and foster nurturing those relationships as well. They go a long way.
Wonderful. That's great advice, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. So it's great to hear. Well, look, Sahil, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you. I really appreciate your time, and as I say, there's been some really wonderful insights. So I'm sure there's a lot that people are going to be able to take away from this episode. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you were able to take something away from it too. I hope the audience was. So thanks so much, Sahil.
Mark, it has been pleasure and a huge admirer of your content. So your content has been very helpful for me as well to understand and share the learnings as well. So thanks for having me here.
Lovely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you again.
Yeah. Have a good day.